Okay, hi. So welcome to a video of my completely spoiler-filled thoughts on His Dark Materials by Phillip Pullman. So I have never read His Dark Materials. I know it is a YA fantasy series. That's about all I know. I know it's fairly beloved, and I kind of want to pose the question to myself during this reading experience of, is this a book that people, or a series that people love for nostalgia, or is it really that good? I was of an age where I could have read this. It was popular when I was young, and I just never did. I just never had any interest in it. Not really sure why. Maybe it was the covers. But yeah, I look forward to kind of vlogging my experience. I'm thinking that it's short enough that it could all be one video, and I can do all of them in one, but I guess we will see based on how I publish this to you. Just to be clear, I am going to be talking about the book. I'm going to be talking about the context of the book. I'm going to be talking about plot lines. So, if you have not read these, unless you want to be spoiled, don't watch this. I am doing no spoiler-free section. I am vlogging my experience as I read them. But without further ado, let us get into the reading. Okay. So far, things are not going too well. This book has already shown its age. I'm hoping that it's going to turn itself around. There's been reference to Eskimos and references to indigenous groups as being barbaric. We're not a fan of that, so I am hoping that will turn itself on its head at some point, because I guess at this point, you'd have to overlook that type of stuff for nostalgia. Okay, so already, it's not my favorite type of fantasy. It is, I'm having a hard time pinning down when it takes place. I'm guessing in the late 1700s. We're at the school, still, and Lyra's just, running around and, being a little hooligan. Okay, this is what I'm not a fan of. I don't really I kind of want you to pick a world. So it's it's Earth, and it's medieval, and real places are being referenced, but then there's a lot of jargon that's not real. And so as I guess as an introduction into the book, there's quite the learning curve for what everything is, because some random things have different names, and I'm is this a word I've never heard of, or is this real life? And I think maybe for kids, they might like that a little bit more, because it's I don't know, it can be fun to be in this universe, and it feels like it could be Earth, and it feels like it could be real. But for me, it's quite honestly just a little confusing. So, we're not off to the greatest start. I do like the idea of these demons? I don't know what maybe I should look up how to pronounce these. But I do like the idea of these creatures that can change shape, and I don't really understand why some people have them and some people don't. But yeah, we will keep reading. Okay, so I've gotten a little bit farther. I like two things. First thing, I'm definitely wrong with the time era it's supposed to be in. There's modern technology, there are cars, they mentioned sleeping bags, I think that there's indoor electricity. I haven't really heard much about electronics, so maybe it's supposed to be set in the 90s when this was written. The second thing, I like the direction it's taken. I was kind of not a huge fan of everything happening at Oxford and just her running around with the other kids. So now we're in a direction where she's met Mrs. Coulter, and she was really infatuated with her, and then there's the moment where she snapped, and her daemon snapped
too, and then there's the party and she's left. So that's where I'm at now. I'm curious to see if she gets like recaptured by Mrs. Coulter because she's just roaming London. But yeah, I'm liking the direction of the book a little bit more. I'm not quite sure how we're gonna get to the north, but I'm assuming it's happening. Coulter is involved, and like she is technically a gobbler. Like you're picking up words, and like she's obviously involved in like the kidnapping of children, but I'm guessing there's some like reason she's doing it, and it's supposed to be for the greater good. We kind of know that our protagonist's uncle is like captured and being held somewhere, and we have not yet used that device that the master gave to her. So curious to see where all of these things are going to lead. I've finished part 1 of book 1, and the protagonist, God, what is her name? Lyra. Lyra is no longer with the woman who we now know is her mother, and we know Lord Asriel, who she thought was her uncle, is her father, and she's now with the Egyptians. Yes. And they're on their way north. And there's a good chance now that her mother knows where she is. So it's taken an interesting turn. I'm curious to see kind of where it goes from here. Lyra herself is an annoying protagonist for me. I can see how young kids get along with her. I like that the protagonist is female because I think that at this time, having a popular fantasy novel with a female protagonist was maybe a little less common. You see J.K. Rowling writing a male protagonist at that time, and uh, hiding her gender a little bit with her name being J.K. Rowling on the book. As opposed to this Phillip Pullman book, obviously written by a man, but with a female uh, child protagonist, which, I like, and I like that that was happening at the time. We'll see where it goes on from here, and if I kind of like where the plot goes, because it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen at this point. I think that the one thing that, this comes up with fantasy sometimes, but like just suddenly being good at something. So there's like the alliothometer or whatever, and it's supposed to be extraordinarily complicated to understand and use. And Lyra just like intuitively knows how to use it without having to actually be taught. And so just stuff like that feels very unearned. So I would like a better explanation as to why she can just understand how to use this without having any context when there's supposedly like long books where you have to like learn all of the symbols and all of this in order, like it's supposed to be very complicated to learn how to read one. Like, so I think that we need a more solid reason for why she's able to read one so easily. Okay, so they have just rescued the bear and are leaving, and we have like this very short thing about the like pantomime, potentially seeing a monkey following them through the trees. So that is definitely the daemon of her mother, Lyra's mother, and that either implies that she's following them, which is unlikely, or she can be far away from her daemon, which means that she either is a witch or she has some sort of technology that allows her to do that. It is a few weeks after I have last checked in. Overall, I just am not really motivated to pick the book up. It doesn't really have a lot of intrigue value for me. it's kind of like things are always like there is a mystery, they have to go to the place, they have to find out what's happening with the kids, but like every hurdle that comes into Lyra's way is very easily resolved. And that's not like super fun to read as a reader. So I'm going to keep chugging through this, but I'm debating at this point, like I'm at the I'm 50% of the way into the book, and so we'll see where it goes. Generally like to give series a little bit farther in to give them a chance, but there's a chance that I won't pick up the second book at this point. I just listened to a sample of the audiobook and it's Demon. It's Demon. So, I'm sorry, I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Okay, so I think that I'm identifying that one of the things that I'm not a fan of with this book is the writing itself. And it's kind of interesting because my criticism for me personally is that there's not enough detail. And like we're just given jargon words and we're never given the actual definition of them, and then like people aren't really described that well, and like it feels like more like an outline and it of people and atmosphere and detail and world. It's not fleshed out for me, and it's interesting because I generally like less detail. I like, A Song of Ice and Fire, or, yeah, I guess like George R.R. Martin's writing style, or what I've heard of for A Wheel of Time. It's very detailed. You get to know exactly what someone's dress looks like, which I also don't like. It's like a little too much detail. So it's like this is like on the other side of the balancing scale for me, where I'm like, I kind of wish you were giving me a little bit more information. And I think because this is a TV show now, that a TV show would be quite nice for this because there is idea without detail. So for me as a reader, I'm not getting like full uh I don't have a fully formed picture in my mind of what anything looks like. Uh and I feel like there's a lot more artistic room and flexibility for a director and producer to kind of build in detail of place and also of people and what these things are, these names for things that you don't really have described to you. I'm not going to actually watch the show, but I would imagine that this would do well as a show. Okay, so I finished part 2 of the book, which brings me up to the point where Lyra gets taken in by the gobblers. Mrs. Coulter gets there and they burn the place down, and now she's safe again. We uncovered, that's not true. We did uncover a mystery. So she now knows that the kids are being cut from their demons, and it has something to do with dust, and that adults have also been cut from their demons. And there's now demons that are somewhere that are cut from the children, but we don't know where those children are. And then part 3 is about going to the place where her father is being held, which I wasn't actually expecting to happen in this book. So I'm guessing that we're going to uncover some bigger mystery that's going to propel the second and third books forward. So we'll see where part 3 goes. Part 3 starts at the 73% mark, so there's not too much of the book left, so maybe they just get there. We'll see. But we also have the witches who have showed up and one of them needs to talk to Lyra to tell her about things. But yeah, so far I think that the plot is fine. It's straightforward, which um it's okay. Like, it's straightforward. It's everything gets resolved fairly easily for Lyra, but I'm wondering, like, I still think that the hardest part for me is that I just don't really like the writing. Um, and I probably would prefer it more on audio, but it's a full cast, and I hate full cast audios, and the audio quality is actually, at least for the first one, just very bad. So I couldn't even attempt to get through it. So we'll see. Okay, so Lyra has been captured again, this time by the bears as Fallard, maybe. And like this is kind of the type of thing that I'm not liking about the plot structure is that it's very linear and we're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So Lyra's already been captured once, and then she got away with a mixture of good timing and luck. And then, well, no, she actually, I'm going to go backwards. She got captured and got away when she was in London. And then she got captured and didn't get away when she was in the north and got put into the place where all the other kids were, conveniently. And then she was trapped there until she escaped. And then she almost got captured on the escape, and then she didn't. And now she was in a hot air balloon thing, and then she got flung out of it, I think by herself. It sounded like everyone else was still in it and she like flung out. I don't know. And now she's getting captured again. And I don't know. I would normally DNF the book, but I kind of want to just finish it for this vlog. But I'm getting the sense that this is a book people like for nostalgia. It's interesting because I've read a few Goodreads reviews, and a lot of people comment on the writing being really good, and I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's good. Uh, and I also see comments about it being very descriptive, and I'm like, did we read different books? Because I have not found this descriptive at all. So I don't know. I'm just very confused. She is also very confused. She has been my demon, keeping close by me this whole time. I think it's just like it's like linear, but like so much is not explained that I wish was explained. I don't know. I'm having a really hard time articulating like why I am not enjoying this. The linear nature, the the way Lyra's kind of like a chosen one, um, with like the unearned traits of a chosen one, which I'm not as big of a fan of. I do love a chosen one trope. I guess I don't really understand why the author chose to write this in a more modern world, but changing things out. Because, like, you could have set this in its own polar world and it would have worked, at least as far as I've seen so far. The Texan character is just like very weird and stereotypical and like brought up Wells Fargo out of the blue, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we referencing things that are specific as Wells Fargo, but like we're making up complete groups of people and cities and creatures? Like, we're not actually doing anything in the real world at this point. So why is it set in the real world? I don't know. I have more complaints than things I like, which is quite a bummer because, yeah, it's right there. I actually own the entire series in this really wonderful edition, so it will find a better home after I am done with them. So I switched to the audiobook, even though I don't like full casts, because I just couldn't sit there and concentrate on this book. So of course she tricked the bear because bears couldn't be tricked, but we had to, set up a little red herring there, and now she has the altheometer thing out. It's just, I can't even pretend at this point to like this book at all. The altheometer thing, I don't know if I'm saying it right, so much plot armor. Like, she has to do nothing to get any semblance of information. She never had to learn how to use this thing. It was never explained how she figured it out. It's just one of those, like, chosen one things that's going on here. And, she uses it to literally find out anything she wants to find out. And the author then does not have to do any due diligence of her going into situations being surprised or really set up a way to find out information in a challenging way to write. The altheometer can just do it. So yeah, what I would love to happen here is I would love to find out, like, after all of this searching for her father and thinking that he's the good guy, I would love to find out that his mission is also bad and that he's also an antagonist. That does mean that both of her parents are antagonists, but I feel like that would set up an interesting potential for a second book, even though I won't be reading it. Like, I can barely get through this. I'm now listening to it as I'm getting things done around the house because, like, like, only for this vlog am I completing this. In all other situations, this would have absolutely been a DNF. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So we've come to the Lord Asriel info dump. I was wondering why people talked about the religious parts of this because it hadn't really come up at all, and that's kind of part of the problem with this. It's a bit out of the blue that the dust is related to original sin, and there's a universe that it's connected to that Lord Asriel is trying to get to defeat original sin. And that's how it's related to your demons, because you get your demon into its final state when you're a teenager, when you're going through puberty, and that's somehow when you start to be full of sin. I don't know, man. It's losing me even more. Okay, I finished the book. I have actually edited the rest of this video. I had to show myself in a different shirt so you didn't think that the only thing I wore was that my hideous gray puffy sweater that I wear around the house. I set myself the task, right, when I started this of, do I think that this book stands up on its own, or do I think people love it for the nostalgia? And as an adult, reading this book for the first time, it does not feel like it stands on its own. It may have at the time. It may have been innovative at the time. It may have hit a lot of the trope categories that were popular at the time. But the straightforward nature that I've harped on about was not enjoyable to read. The chosen one with that everything seems to, for the most part, go right for, with the exception at the end. That had a little dark turn, which I was right. Lord Asriel was evil, so I guess yay me. There's still things open. We don't know what happened to the demons that were cut from their children. We don't know what happened to those children. We don't know what is actually on the other side. But Lyra seems to think at the end of this with Pantomime, which I hope I'm saying that right too, that they're going to go on and embark on this quest on their own. So it has a good setup for a second book. Maybe the series gets better and better as you go. I will not be reading it. So to me, it's a nostalgia read, I think, for people. If you have reasons that you think it's not and that I'm wrong, feel free in the comments to let me know your thoughts in a polite manner, as always. I set up to do a vlog, always with the intention of like enjoying the book. So I am disappointed that the experience was not pleasant and that I didn't really have too many nice things to say. But overall, fun experience creating the video. And that is all I got. So until next time, happy reading.